How's it, guys? Sorry for that little bit of a blip there, but this is Dayvy FC, and welcome back to the Deadline with Dayvy live stream. This live stream is going to revolve around the round of 16 for the Euro Fantasy, where we obviously were given unlimited transfers. Apologies for just sending that message. What I wanted to do is just put the rank and the game week points in the pinned message. So no, I wasn't just posting my rank in chat for nothing. I just wanted to put it there so that when people do join the stream, they don't kind of ask me to go back and talk about last game week. So to get this out of the way quickly before we start, 74 points, relatively good game week. However, I was super disappointed that I didn't captain one of Gini Van Aldum or Xherdan Shaqiri. As you can see, they're 13 points. Absolutely massive score. In the end of things, I actually got quite lucky with Kai Havertz. He scored kind of if you watch the game against Hungary, was kind of a cross in from Hummels that was going to go in, but then Havertz got on the end of it and luckily put it in for my own fantasy teams. So luckily we did get 7 points from Kai Havertz, but not as good as it could have been. The overall kind of theme of this was the defense was disappointing. My two Italian defenders came out trumps there with a lovely clean sheet. But then Munier, Dumfries, and Guzan didn't get anything. I mean, who would have predicted that those three kind of attacking defenders only would get 1 point each? Definitely not me. And that's kind of led us towards 74 points, which was still respectable. If you go to kind of the leagues that we show our overall ranks, currently just below that top 2K mark, 21st in SA, which would be really nice to kind of finish first in SA. And of the neutrals, didn't select any side because I didn't think we had to at the start of the game. I just kind of pressed continue instead of choosing a team. So I'm part of the neutral society, and I'm 1,500, in that. Going on to the current team, this is what you guys are all here for, I'm sure. My team as of today I've made one transfer. Let me just zoom in here for you guys actually, because it's a little bit far to see, but I have made one transfer from yesterday's video, which was the team selection for the round of 16. I took out Lukaku and I brought in Kylian Mbappe because at about 0.8 to spend was the perfect amount to upgrade him. Upgrade, downgrade him, you guys could argue what you kind of think on that. But in terms of the score, I think that Mbappe might have more of a chance of getting a better score than Lukaku will. I'm pretty sure there'll be those of you in the chat kind of questioning this decision, but we will discuss it, and I will go through some changes that I am considering before we finally look at me talking today. I can't really speak. Before we finally kind of lock in that squad before the deadline does come. I'm going to try and do it before the deadline, because before the deadline actually happens, because the website last week actually ended up crashing. So I'm going to do it a couple of minutes before, because I don't want any of you guys not to be able to make the transfers or the kind of changes in the squad because of the deadline. So a lot of people in chat are questioning the double French attack, but just when I kind of look at it, if there's going to be one team that scores a lot of goals, it's going to be France versus Switzerland, in my opinion. It could also be Italy versus Austria, which could be a high-scoring affair. But that Portugal versus Belgium game, I just really don't know where it's going to go. I currently have predicted that Belgium will go through, but I mean, Portugal could equally kind of go through. So that's what I'm kind of contemplating. And if I had to kind of choose between Belgium and France, I think I would go with France, even though Mbappe hasn't been on the best of form. In terms of the stats, him and Lukaku actually have similar stats. It's just kind of Mbappe's been not great at finishing his chances, whereas Lukaku, kind of as that striker, is known for his finishing. So he finishes a lot better than Mbappe does. But surely Mbappe kind of has to do something in the end of things. And in chat, someone saying, will Berardi start? He will. Basically, every one of the predicted Italian lineup is going to be about Berardi starting. So I would be fine with him for going with him. So you guys don't have to worry about him not starting on that case. France XG along with the group phase was really poor. But the thing about France is that you have to look at the teams that they faced. They faced Portugal, they faced Germany. Both those two sides are in other kind of round of 16 games. Whereas Belgium, who did Belgium face? They faced Russia. They faced, I can't even remember who they ended up playing. But I know they faced Russia. Then in second, they faced Denmark. Then they faced Finland. So, I mean, in terms of the group stage stats, you can't really compare Belgium to France, to be honest, because they had a much easier group, to be honest. Do you think Immobile or Lukaku? So that's something that I was considering going for, because when I did look at the stats, and I'll take you guys through the stats with the Italian lineup right now. Actually, let me just go to them. When I looked at the Italian stats, Immobile has been kind of wrecking everyone. Okay, why am I typing Italian? Let's just type in Italy, sorry. So when you look at this lineup here, and then let's sort it to XG, because I think XG is basically the best stat that I kind of follow. We could also do it with expected assists, but I don't think there's too much in that. Actually, if you sort it to expected assist, Berardi's actually got some good stats. But in terms of XG, just look at Immobile. 10 shots, 3 on target. So that's not the best in the world, because he has hit a lot off target, but 10 shots for an XG of 2. He has scored 2 goals, so that's a pretty accurate kind of XG. But compared to any other player in the Euros, that's a really good stats to go by. So that's why I'm really tempted by going for Immobile. And if I had to recommend going for one of Immobile and Lukaku, I would probably say Immobile, just because he gets the better fixture. But I mean, anything could happen if Belgium end up winning, and then you go Belgium versus Italy. I mean, that's a really tight matchup as well. 80k now, best differentials. I would probably say the Swedish assets. I mean, 12%, that's pretty good. But you also mustn't be scared of these other guys. Like, I mean, Karim Benzema is 13%. So, I mean, he could be templated in kind of the Euro fantasy community or the Twitter community. But in terms of ownership overall, that's a really good stat to go by. I mean, Insigne is also 18%. I mean, these players are all kind of lowly owned. I mean, Lukaku is one of the major owned players, so that could be quite scary not owning him. But just kind of look at any of the players. What I would do is just sort your team and then go through the ownership that way. I think anything below kind of a 15% is worth it. Langs, okay, so Langs, I'm going to have to pronounce this well. It's Kuluvetsky. So that's one player that I have been watching. FPL Swede's been kind of shouting him out a lot. Obviously, him coming from Sweden. But he's kind of a guy who had COVID, so he wasn't fit for the first 2 fixtures, but then he came off the bench in the last fixture, game week 3, and he got 2 assists in about 30 minutes, 20 minutes. So he's looks to be quite a good asset to have, but when I do look at kind of Forsberg, that's what I would kind of go for rather, because I mean, you are paying 7 million more, but you're guaranteed a start here, and Forsberg's been doing it the whole kind of Euro group stages, whereas Kuluvetsky might not have been doing it. And I actually don't even know if he's going to start. Can I use Kimpembe instead of Pavard? You can. If you can't afford this draft, that's perfectly fine. The one thing about Pavard and Kimpembe that's exactly the same is both of them have a yellow card. So if they do pick up a yellow card in the quarterfinals, they will miss the semifinals, which is quite annoying. But kind of the only player that doesn't have a yellow in the French backline. I know Hernandez might not, but the only player is Varane. So if you can afford Varane, then maybe go for him rather if you want to go for like kind of a safe option. Forsberg or Pogba? So Pogba's a player that I actually wanted to have in my team, but unfortunately I just couldn't afford him, and also his price is quite ridiculous in my opinion. If you compare Forsberg and what Forsberg has done for Sweden to Paul Pogba, and you consider that Forsberg's about 0.8 cheaper than him, you have to go with Forsberg in my opinion. Pogba is rated too highly in terms of the FPL, or not FPL, sorry, Euro Fantasy, but at 8.5, that is not a good deal in my opinion. Zaid saying, thanks for the content, you're awesome. Thanks, Zaid. Not even a question there, just a compliment. Always appreciate the support, guys. Thanks a lot. Are you sure Di Lorenzo is going to play? So he will play because Florenzi is out injured. So he might not play for the next week, and there was someone that commented that on my video yesterday. They asked, what are you going to do with Di Lorenzo if he doesn't start next week? But the thing about it is that I can simply just downgrade him to whichever German, or I can upgrade him to whatever German or England player qualifies. So if England win, I can move him to maybe someone like a Stones, or if Germany win, I can try and fit in one of the other centre-backs. De Bruyne and Immobile, or Lukaku and Insigne. So slightly Dexter, what I've been leaning towards recently is now going to be Immobile and De Bruyne. So I really do think if you're going for a pure kind of Belgium aspect, I think if you really think Belgium are going to do well, I would go with Lukaku because he's going to finish the chances, whereas De Bruyne will supply them. But in terms of kind of those combinations, I think Immobile slightly edges it because of his advantage over Insigne. And there has been some rumors about Insigne, Berardi. I mean, Chiesa Benedeshi, those type of oaks, they are not those type of oaks because you guys won't understand. Those type of guys, they could potentially start. So that's why I think there might be some rotation there. And apparently Chiesa played really well in the last Italian game. So I wouldn't be surprised if I see him featuring about 60 minutes or 70 minutes. Don't you fancy Damsgaard over Sarabia? I personally think that the Spain game, I think Sarabia plays really well when I watch the highlights, and I think his stats are looking quite good, but I can perfectly understand it if you want to go with Damsgaard, especially because he is going to be in the starting lineup. Apparently, Griezmann is on pens now. So, Terence, it's not now. It's kind of been always. He always has been on pens, but what's happened is that he's actually given the pens away to Griezmann and that sort of thing. Thanks, Penguin. Machine Media saying those type of folks, I just can't. So do apologize. Sometimes I will put in a little bit of South African slang there that if you guys don't understand, just put it in chat. Jimmy saying, who do you think is probably going to get more points, Yarmolenko or Modric? I think you have to go with Yarmolenko on there just because I think that game, it has a less probability than Croatia beating Spain. So Croatia, Spain, that doesn't look great. Whereas if you look at Ukraine, Sweden, that looks a lot better. So I think in terms of also out of attacking positions, Yarmolenko is more attacking than Modric is. And I honestly think that Croatia are going to park and let Spain absorb all that possession, all that pressure, and they might be able to absorb it, they might not. The stats are saying that they won't. Who can be a safe starter for France's left-back position? So Mohamed, what I read up on is that Hernandez is currently struggling, and also Lucas Digne is also struggling. So there has been rumors that maybe Rabiot will start there, but I don't think I would look at left back unless Hernandez is back fit. Otherwise, I would completely negate it because you don't want to put Rabiot there as a midfielder that's playing as a defender. Lavish saying, I'm a time traveler from the future. You get 100 points this week. Hopefully that should be quite good. Jan saying, lekker David starter vandag. Dankie. Spinazzola, your captain. So let me talk about the captaincy quickly because I think a lot of people will be confused why I'm going for a defender over a midfielder or an attacker. I really am not putting too much emphasis on today's games because I think Memphis Depay, Gini Van Aldum, those players are the best captaincy options this week and also the French assets. So that's why I don't think I would be looking at too much emphasis on going for like an Immobile, an Insigne. So I'm going for a punt here because I think Spinazzola has the best chance of getting the most returns because if Italy keep a clean sheet and Spinazzola gets an attacking return, that's going to be a massive score. Gozan or Alaba, team is complete. I can afford either. Jack, I would go with Alaba there just because that Germany-England game is too hard to call and Spain have a good chance of progressing. Who's better to captain today? Ronaldo, Lukaku, or Depay? Who's better to captain in general? Asked Dan. I think Depay is the best captaincy option this week. Damien saying Hernandez will play. So if Hernandez plays, he's also a good option. But I just can't spend that much more money on him when Pavard is cheaper and is more nailed. So that's what I'm kind of saying about that one. No Denmark players today like Holbier or Mæhle. So I'm not going for a Denmark player as of yet, but I might be making a change for them if I want to go for one of their transfers. Holbier or Damsgaard? I have to go with Damsgaard. I know that Holbier has the better assist this kind of group stages, but Damsgaard is far more attacking, and I always favor that. De Lorenzo, sure starter. As of this fixture, yes, but he might not be next fixture. Okay, so Hernandez has been confirmed. So if Hernandez has been confirmed fit, then 100% you guys can go for him. But I would suggest maybe a double up then. But I personally prefer Pavard over him. Dinesh saying, who do I put the captaincy on? Insigne or Immobile? I would go with Immobile. Immobile is the best Italian attacker if you want to go for them. Ronaldo over Mbappe if I can afford him. I know that you might want to go for Ronaldo, but my own personal opinion is that I'm going to be going without him because I just don't think those fixtures are favorable for Portugal. And unless he gets a pen, I don't know if they're going to do that well. That's what I'm saying. But if you think he's a good option, he could be, and that could be perfectly fine. So if you can afford him and you want him, then I would suggest going for it. Because if you have your own gut feeling, that's always going to override my own opinion. As Stecklenburg or Donnarumma, I would personally go for both of those two options, Dan. But if you want to go for a more assured option, then Donnarumma definitely. Stecklenburg, Although I have him, I don't trust that whole Netherlands defense that much. But I do think if you want kind of a cheap keeper and a more expensive keeper, he's perfect there because at about 4.7, great option. Benzema or Immobile. So, Salman, the thing about your question is that I don't know the rest of your squad because I probably know that you've stacked your Italian lineups in your midfield and your defense. So I would suggest getting at least one French attacker because their fixture is also quite favorable. Immobile or Spinazzola as captain, that's honestly like a 50-50. I favor both of them to score. It's just who score more. And I think Spinazzola has that highest ceiling because of his clean sheet threat and also his attacking threat. How will your captaincy move throughout the day? So let me just confirm this with the dates. But it's going to start off with Spinazzola. It will then move to Depay. And then I'll probably put it on Benzema or Mbappe. And then the final day will be Forsberg. But as of Forsberg, I'm pretty sure that I will be fine. Rohit saying, news coming that Germany may start with a back four. Guzan's a doubt, I guess. So the thing with Guzan that I could just downgrade him to maybe a male because I think that he might be a better option there. So I might have to lose one of my other attackers. So let's do some changes with the squad here and see what happens. So the one thing that I was considering is taking Mbappe out for Immobile. And that's just because I really favor him from an attacking point of view. But then we're going to have to lose one midfielder. Right now, I think that might be Insigne because I could maybe squeeze in a Kevin De Bruyne. So let's go with Immobile and then we're going to bring in De Bruyne here. Not Italy. Let's go for Belgium. Bring Kevin De Bruyne in and then we need, look at this. This brings me back to FPL days. I can't afford this draft by 0.1 million. I mean, what are the odds for that one? This would be kind of a perfect selection to do. But what I can do then is if Gozan might not start, then we simply just downgrade him to whoever we want and we have 0.1 in the bank. So let's go and look at options that we can afford in defense that we think will do well. So Mings, I'm not going to go for, if I'm not going to go for a German player, I'm not going to go for an England player because that one's too hard to kind of call. I'm not going to go with any of the Belgium assets. I could definitely go with the Denmark asset because I don't know why, but I think that Wales will score today. And that's just my opinion. I think that my favorite golfer, Gareth Bale, is going to have a good game. And I wouldn't even be surprised if Wales win this one. So I just don't know if going for a Danish kind of defender is going to be worth it in the end. But he's definitely probably leading the charge there on terms of assets that I can afford. That's exactly what I did this morning from your draft, says Dwayne. So Dwayne, maybe this is the chosen team then. Maybe this is what we should be going for. Is it a good idea to combine De Bruyne, Lukaku, and Insigne? That's perfectly fine. Like, if you think Belgium are going to do well, and I guess I'm kind of in the same boat as you because I predicted Belgium to beat Portugal. So unless they beat them on penalties, someone's going to have to score the goal. And I mean, it's going to be De Bruyne. It's going to be Lukaku if they do win. So I guess the combination, the double up isn't that bad. The only thing I will say is that Portugal and then facing Italy, potentially, I'm not saying Italy is a write-off there, but potentially Italy are two very tough fixtures in a row. But if they do win both those games, I mean, De Bruyne and Lukaku surely will be in the points. The Danes going great for the last grouping match. So Denmark have picked it up since the loss to Finland, but I can perfectly understand why they lost that. Because obviously we had the whole thing with Christian Eriksen and they were probably emotionally unstable during that game. But the two fixtures after that were really solid from Denmark. So I do think that they have a chance of potentially doing quite well here. Why not go for Bale over KDB? So Jason, it's KDB. I don't know how to say this, but it's just KDB is just such a better option in my opinion. I know that Wales, I said that they could score, but I just trust Belgium more. Gozans or Alaba, so potentially Germany might play a back four. But what I kind of think is that the German media are pumping out the back four just because they're trying to make England not play a back five. Because what's been the talk of the town now is that England are going to play a back five to counter the Germans' back five. So what happens when Germany play a back four? What are England going to kind of do? You know what I'm saying? Maybe there's a little bit of mind games going here. But I think they would be crazy not to start Gozans because he's just been so solid attacking and defensive in my opinion. So it's going to be a little bit of a strange one if maybe Gozans doesn't start, but maybe I can understand it. Roberts to replace Gozan. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't kind of invest in Wales at all. Belgium defense is worse than Portugal. So Mocha, that's something that I actually saw today. Is some people were predicting kind of a little bit of a goal fest because neither Portugal or Belgium can defend right now, well, at least against the stronger opposition. So if you watched the France-Portugal game where it was 2-2, I think a lot of people are thinking that it's going to be similar to that. So, I mean, surely there's going to be goals in that one if it ends up being quite a high-scoring affair, and our players should hopefully get some more points. Why Immobile and not Lukaku? So this just comes down to my Italian options and kind of looking at the stats. So this is what I covered earlier when we looked at Italy in kind of isolation. I sorted it by XG. So obviously, I mean, Immobile will be the best XG because he's the most forward player. But compared to the other options, I mean, the stats just look so much better on Immobile's side. I know that Insigne here has got 7 shots, which isn't too shabby. But I think I just trust maybe Immobile to score a little bit more points. But it's a little bit sad because I'm going to have to say goodbye to Mbappe. And I think that he actually could do quite well this week. Will Paul Torres start? I wouldn't bet on it. And the only reason I'm saying that is because of how strong Spain looked against Slovakia. I know Slovakia were terrible, but I just think that they're going to keep that same lineup from that Slovakia game instead of changing it around too much. Get Mail and swap Di Lorenzo to Alaba. I'm not too keen on going for a double up in the Spain defense because I've already got Simon, and I really do just trust the Italian defense quite a lot. And the nice thing is they play first day, so we can just kind of sub them out if they don't end up returning. Is this the chosen lineup? This is Jacob. So it's not the chosen lineup yet because I haven't decided on what kind of defender I'll be going for. But if I kind of do, this could be one of the lineups I go for. It won't be too dissimilar to this. The only players that I can see changing are going to be Insigne and Mbappe here. Because it's either going to be Immobile, Kevin De Bruyne, or be Mbappe, or it'll be Insigne, that kind of thing. In terms of the other options here, we have 5.1 to spend, so I guess we could afford a Reece James, a Kieran Trippier, but I just don't know if they're going to play. I could go for a Hummels, but he's also quite expensive. So, I mean, there's not too many great options at that 5 million price bracket. And now we're kind of entering scary territory because these guys have 1 point. So I guess Mail's the best option to go for, to be honest, if we were kind of looking at it. So let's just fit him in here and see how it looked. We have 0.6 to spend, not the end of the world. We could simply just upgrade another department next week. I'm not too scared of having money in the bank, to be honest, because we can always just change it around. I just don't know. Is Mbappe, Insigne, and Gozens, is this worth it, kind of? That's the only thing that I'm considering. Because I think that Germany-England game is going to be super tight. So either team could kind of get a clean sheet, to be honest. The only annoying thing is okay, they actually do start on Tuesday, so we will get this lineup before. So we could just keep Gozens on the bench then if we weren't comfortable with keeping him. So I don't know, is Mbappe, Insigne, Gozens better or worse than this kind of combination? Benzema or Griezmann? I prefer Benzema because Griezmann has been dropping too deep for me. I know that he is playing kind of a cam slot, and against maybe a deeper lying side, he'll be more attacking, but he just hasn't done it for me. The only thing he has in his locker is that he is on penalties. My forwards, Lukaku, Ronaldo, Depay. What do you think about them? So I'm perfectly fine if you guys want Ronaldo. It's one of those options where if you want to go for him, go for him. If you want to go for Lukaku, it's the same situation. I just can't fit every single player into my own team. Harry saying, hi Dave, hope all is well. My dude, all is well, thankfully. COVID in SA is pretty bad at the moment, but thankfully we're keeping safe, we're keeping indoors, keeping myself busy by doing fantasy and Euro content here. But hopefully you're also well, Harry. Sarabia or Holberg? I would go with Sarabia, to be honest. I know that Holberg has been super solid from an assisting point of view, but I just think that Spain have looked better from an attacking point of view. Is Pavard nailed? He's nailed. The only disadvantage to him is that he is on a yellow card. So if he does pick up another yellow card, he will miss the semi-final. Di Lorenzo will play till the end. Florenzi can return. So Florenzi can return, but we'll know if he's back in training because there's a lot of journalists around Italy and they'll give us the lowdown. So if he does return to training, we can always just sub him out. I have Mela and Schmeichel. So you're probably going to be hoping for Gareth Bale. Not a masterclass there, Aaron, because I just don't know why. I think that Wales will score today, and that's why I'm not too keen on going with Danish defenders. is Di Lorenzo sure to start? So a lot of people are asking about Di Lorenzo, and I can say that he's going to start, guys. You don't have to worry about that. Basically, every Italian predicted lineup has Di Lorenzo playing. Mbappe or De Bruyne. I guess that's what it comes down to in my own decision, is going for Mbappe or going for De Bruyne. The only thing that kind of edges it for me in Mbappe's favor is that I do think France get further than Belgium. And that's why I think that it might be worth just bringing Mbappe in and hoping that he does well over this fixture against Switzerland, because I think the chances of him scoring are better than maybe a De Bruyne or maybe a Lukaku are. But also I just think that he hasn't been playing the greatest, has got a good XG, good stats-wise. He's been pretty decent, but just hasn't got that finishing this tournament. Damsgaard or Berardi, I would favor going with the Italian midfielder. I just trust Italy more than I do Denmark. How would you change your team for people who want to use a wild card in the quarterfinals? So I had this question yesterday, and it was actually a really hard question to judge because I don't think it would be as that much different to the squad I currently have, because I really have set the squad up for basically a round of 16 wild card, because I've gone for fixtures that I think are the best, and I'm just hoping that these teams end up qualifying. So I don't know how to kind of judge it. I think maybe I'd look at going for another Swedish midfielder, that midfielder that everyone's kind of talking about that could potentially play well, but I don't know how much else I would do. Someone asked here, what is Griezmann's XG looking like? So let's just go France here, and I can kind of compare them for you. So you see, this is the thing about France that I was favoring Mbappe with, is that his XG here was the highest out of the French team, and he hasn't scored a goal. So surely he's due to get something. And that's just kind of what I was thinking about. But I mean, you could say that about kind of anyone. If they play badly, they might just end up not performing. But if they are due, then hopefully they'll perform. But you can see Griezmann here is quite low. So he has still got a respectable amount of shots, but they just haven't been producing as much as maybe the others. Has still got a goal, but I just think in terms of the potential chances, he might be lower than a Benzema and Mbappe. And because they're the same position, I would rather go with Benzema or Mbappe. A Swedish defender instead of the Danish defender. The only thing I don't like about Sweden is their next round fixture. So they face whoever wins England, Germany, and I think they'll lose that game. So that's why I'm not really that keen on going with the Swedish defender. Whereas Denmark, I mean, they could be in a shout there when they face the Netherlands if both teams obviously win their respective games. What's that website called? So the website's called theanalyst.com. I'll actually just post it in the link below. I'll post it in the chat for you guys. So there's the website if you guys want to go check it out. And you can do your own comparisons. If you could afford to keep Gozens in the squad, would you? I have 0.1 more. Amir, I probably would. I'm probably going to end up going for it anyway. I'll probably end up just keeping the squad that I currently have. Because I think that it would be quite a big statement if Germany don't start him because he's been so good. What do you think of Locatelli? So thank you for answering this question. Thank you for answering this or asking this question, because I think that if you guys do own Locatelli, just be careful because Verratti is back and he could potentially replace him. So that's the only thing I'll say about that. Yi Junior saying you messed up on saying that Depay won't start last week. I don't know where I said that, but I think maybe I didn't have him on my own team, but he definitely did start. We had the kind of lineup last week. That was the crazy one where the cameraman took a picture. So Depay definitely was in that lineup that we read. Captain Berardi or Immobile, I would go with Immobile out of those two options. Out of Insigne, Berardi, if you can afford both, I would prefer Insigne just because I think he's a little bit more nailed. Alexander saying, hey boss, if you had your wild card, what would you do now? So we had this question a little bit earlier and I was super confused on what to do. I just thought that out of potentially those kind of players that I have in my lineup, I don't think there's too many that I would do differently. And that's just because I've really gone for the fixtures in this kind of draft. I've gone for players that I think will do well, players that I think could like perform well, and that's why I've gone for kind of the players that I've selected. So I don't think there's any much difference that I would do. Locatelli or Verratti, I would probably go with neither of them, Victor, because it's going to be really hard to predict who starts. Jason saying, would you replace Benzema with Immobile and get rid of Insigne for someone else? If I had to go with the French attacker, I would go with Benzema though. So I would probably replace Mbappe rather. And that's what we were kind of discussing here. We're discussing going without Mbappe and Insigne and rather going for Immobile and De Bruyne, and then downgrading Gozens to a cheap Danish defender, probably male. If you had the limitless chip, would you go with the same team? So that's a very good question there. I probably would go for more expensive defenders. I would probably take Gozens out. I would go with Jordi Alba. I would take Sarabia out. I would go with De Bruyne. And otherwise, I think maybe take out... I think I'd probably keep the same squad. Maybe swap out Mbappe for Immobile. Something like that. But that's not really like a limitless question. That's a question of kind of anything. A French or German defender, Gozens versus Kimpembe. I favor the French defense this week because they have an easier fixture. I do think that Gozens Germany game will be quite close, but the only thing about it is that I don't want to waste the transfer on the upcoming. I'm just going for Gozens because of a little bit of a punch here, but I could always just downgrade him if we have more concrete news that he won't start. Let me actually check where the lineup is. So the Germany game is only on Tuesday, so I wouldn't really trust any kind of lineup news as of yet because there's a lot of days of training still. And we do also get this lineup, so we can also just leave Gozens on the bench if we don't favor these chances. The one thing I will say about the whole Belgium game is that they do play on the same day as the Netherlands. So I reckon more people will go with the Netherlands captain, and that's why maybe going without De Bruyne and going without Lukaku might be an option for me, and that's kind of what I'm thinking. All the best. Thanks, Samu. Appreciate you dropping by, Brady. Is Di Lorenzo nailed on? So, Ollie, he is nailed on until Florenzi comes back. So, Florenzi is injured. So, for this game today, he's nailed, but for the future, he might not be. So, that's what I can kind of tell you. But you don't have to worry about it too much because what happens is next game week, we have better clarity of who's in the quarterfinals, and we can always just downgrade Di Lorenzo if Florenzi's back. Are you sure Sarabia starts this game as well as the next if they qualify? I think that he will start the next game week or this game week because of how well Spain played. I don't think the Spanish manager would be clever to rotate anything from that Slovakia game. And that's why I don't know if Pau Torres is going to play as well. Berardi or Sarabia, I think that I would go with Berardi Danish. Just because I think I trust Italy more than I do Spain. The best solution is probably to have both of them. Rishad saying, is this your final team? I think this is probably going to be my final team that I go with. I just think that in terms of the options I want, it has who I want, and it also has a couple of punts that I think are quite exciting. Is this limitless chip? No, Harry, it's not. This is my current team. If you can't afford it, just let me know in chat because what I can do is I can make some changes for you or not make changes on my own team, but describe changes that you guys can make for your own squads to maybe afford this draft, such as maybe a Pavard to a Kimpembe and that sort of thing. Dean says, why Pavard over Kimpembe? So Dean, I always prefer fullbacks because a fullback is better at an attacking position. So if you watch your fullbacks from a specific team, they usually get forward, getting crosses in, so they still have a chance of getting an attacking return. Whereas a centre back, although they can get some crosses on like corners and stuff, I think that I always prefer going for a more attacking defender. If you know what I'm saying. Lavish saying Insigne just disliked this live stream, so maybe a Immobile because I haven't seen it in my squad. So sorry if you haven't enjoyed this live stream. I do apologize. Ben saying I can't afford it. So Ben, just list how much you can't afford it by, and I'll tell you a suggestion here, buddy. Danish players, Banjo, that game to me, I think there's going to be goals in it, but I also think there's going to be clean sheets lost. So if I had to go with kind of a Danish player, it would be a defender, and I just don't know if they're going to keep a clean sheet. What's the best mid in range of 9 million? I would honestly probably say Havertz, but I think Insigne rides him quite close because of the fixture. Not Immobile over Mbappe. So no, currently I don't have Mbappe I don't have Immobile instead of Mbappe because I already have my kind of quadruple up. But I can honestly say that Immobile is going to be also a good option if you guys want to go for him. Captaincy, Spinazzola today, Depay tomorrow. Who's the next option? Is it I think it's Benzema then, and then it'll be Forsberg if I don't have any captaincy returns. Some German news reporting that 4 players who Lowe's disappointed at after their last performance, and Guzen is one of them. Thoughts on this? So I understand what you're saying because they drew to Hungary, but I don't know if rotating the entire team is going to do well in the round of 16. I mean, this is the same almost team that destroyed Portugal. So if you know what I'm... So, like, you can have the bad, but then you also have to have the good with it. Immobile and KDB for Mbappe and Insigne. What do you think? So that's exactly what I had. I think if I could afford that straight swap, I can't afford it by 0.1. So if you can afford that, I would be perfectly fine with going for that. The only reason why I'm kind of leaning towards maybe not going for it is because I don't think I'll captain a Belgian player. So do I want them if I'm not going to captain them? Maybe not. I took CR7 out to fit Immobile and Depay. Is this a good strategy? If you can afford Immobile and Depay and you couldn't afford them with CR7, then I'm perfectly fine with that. I mean, Immobile and Depay are really strong in this kind of group stages. I can't afford by 0.5. So what I would do is I would downgrade Pavard to Kimpembe. And then all what I would do is I'll take Gozens out for Mæhle from Denmark. Your draft with KDB, Immobile and Mæhle looked better. So that I do think it looked overall better because I think Immobile outshines Insigne. But I think in terms of options that have a high ceiling, I think that Mbappe is stronger than KDB. So it's a little bit of a tough one. So Ben, I can't afford it by 1 mil, so downgrade Gozens to Mæhle and then downgrade Pavard to Kimpembe. Why Spinazzola as your captain? So Spinazzola is my captain because I'm not really placing emphasis on the captaincy today. Because I think that this is the day to take punts, and I'll think that Depay is the best captaincy option anyway. You're not captaining Mbappe as well, so that is true, but what I could do is I could captain Mbappe over Benzema. It's going to be one of the French attackers. I just listed Benzema because he was in the squad, I think, earlier on. But between Mbappe and Benzema, I could go with either of those options. Is Pogba a good shout? I don't like Pogba at that price because I don't think he's worth 8.5. I mean, he could still do well against Switzerland, but I think there's other options that are better at that midfield position. Did I just hear you say Mbappe to KDB? So, Emir, what I meant is Mbappe, Insigne to KDB and Immobile. That's what we're going to go for. Sorry to ask again, but can you repeat your captains per day? So, Spinazzola today, Depay tomorrow, Benzema, Mbappe on Monday, and then Forsberg on Tuesday. Zaid saying, Dayvy, can you confirm team on Twitter? I can't see or listen. So Zaid, I probably won't, but it'll be this squad if you can see it. I don't know. I don't know what you're saying there with confirm it on Twitter, but yes, this is going to be the team that I probably will go for. Would Immobile be better than Benzema? I think that you have to own a French attacker, Harry, or whoever it is. So if you already have 2 Italian attackers, then I would go with Benzema. I'm playing the score predictor. Will you give me a hint for today's matches? Thanks. So let me go over my matches today. Wales, Denmark. Denmark win 2-1. Italy, Austria 2-0. Netherlands, Czech Republic 2-0. Belgium, Portugal 2-1 Belgium. Spain, Croatia 2-0 Spain. France, Switzerland 3-0 France. Germany, England 1-0 Germany. Sweden, Ukraine 2-1 Sweden. So not a lot of clean sheets there. Basically what I did was I predicted the players that I have to do well. Is Italy team out yet? So the Italian lineup's not out yet because they play the later fixture. So they play at 9 o'clock my time. So the lineup will only come out about 8 o'clock. Would Stone start? Ali, I think he will. Rumors that Germany will play with the back 4. So this is one of those things I was talking about with maybe that they kind of going for a little bit of mind games here by saying that going for a back 4 because they've been playing a back 5 the whole tournament. I mean, it's something that could be true. That's how rumors start because it's like a factual thing. But I think in terms of maybe some mind games being played there. Anthony Lee saying Croatia will beat Spain. So Anthony, that's exactly what's nice about football is that nothing's certain. So if they do end up winning, that's perfectly fine and that'll be quite surprising. Not a lot of clean sheets. Lewis is saying, but football's coming home. So football is coming home because the final is at Wembley. That's the only reason why it's coming home, unfortunately. Shaggy saying, where are you from? I'm from South Africa. Gosens or Jordi Alba. If you're going to afford both, I would go with Alba. Should I get Kante as he's cheap? So the only reason I'd go for Kante is because he's cheap, as you said. I wouldn't expect too much from him. So I would kind of just go for him, because if you need a 5 million option that plays, that should be fine. Is Sarabia confirmed to start? He's not confirmed, but I think that he's got a good chance of starting, just because of the fact that Spain looks so good against Slovakia. So that's why I think that he will do well. De Bruyne or Insigne? I think you have to go with De Bruyne there, just because you probably have other options from Italy. Perisic or Luka Modric? Go for Perisic because he's more attacking. Modric is good, but he also can take the place of a holding midfielder. Whereas Perisic is that out-and-out winger. And against Spain, what's going to happen is Spain are going to have a super load of possession, and Croatia are going to look to counter-attack. So Modric is not very quick, so he won't be involved in those counter-attacks, but Perisic will. Why would you go Kimpembe over Varane when Kimpembe got a yellow card against Portugal? I wouldn't go Kimpembe over Varane if you can afford both. But Kimpembe is for those people that need value. So if you can't afford Varane, go Kimpembe. But if you can, then go Varane. That's like Kimpembe Varane, that's literally all it is between it, is that if you can afford him, go with Varane. Kante's a box-to-box. Maybe he can assist one time. That is true. So that's why but Shaggy, you're kind of talking yourself into it here. So you don't get hyped about Kante because he's going to get points. Just get hyped because he's cheap. Don't expect much from him. Who should I get? Gozan, Stones, or Kimpembe? Go for Kimpembe because France have the best fixture, Ali. Lukaku, Depay, go for Depay. If there's one player that I suggest you guys have for this round of 16, it's going to be Memphis Depay. He's like my one essential player that you guys do need. Are you sure about Di Lorenzo? I am very sure about Di Lorenzo. If he gets benched, that's perfectly fine. We've got some subs that can come on. Just hopefully maybe then Gozans doesn't play the back four. Pavard to play? Yes, he will play. Why is no one talking about Hernandez for France? So, Lewis, I think it's because Hernandez is more expensive than Pavard. And that's kind of the only reason why. So people are always kind of more cost effective. So they usually go for the cheaper option. Razmit saying, rumors Di Lorenzo's benched. What I will do is I'll go on Twitter for you guys now and take a look. Are there any reasons why you don't own 4 France players? So they're very expensive. That's the reason why. Okay, let me go and look. Okay, let me look on for the rumors. I might be a little bit quiet here, but I'm just trying to confirm rumors about the lineups. So I don't see anything as of yet. I don't know where you guys get these rumors from, because on my timeline, I don't have them. What you guys can do is if you see a rumor on Twitter, then just kind of tag me in it or put me in the replies. Because I'm basically seeing nothing about rumors of potential starters, potential benchings. Yeah, I don't see anything about the lineups. I can't get Forsberg. I have 7.4. Who should I get? So 7.4 is quite a tough spot. I would probably just go with a player like a Damsgaard, because underneath Forsberg, there's not many options that are good. I can't afford Forsberg, so I have this name is giving me a lot of problems. Kulusevski. So Kulusevski, you can go for him. Yes, that's perfectly fine. So maybe the person asking for a 7.4 option, go with Kulusevski. I know that I'm absolutely butchering that, but so please, I do apologize about that one. In terms of the fixtures, I think I have everything intact here, so I'm just going to go to the main kind of screen, so you guys do see the final team selection. So we're going for a little bit of differentials, I think. I know that Mbappe is probably a really strange one. Torn between Lukaku and Mbappe. I definitely think Lukaku is the safer option to go for. I just think Mbappe might have the highest ceiling. Pavard won't start. So I don't know if Pavard doesn't start, I don't know who they start in that position, because that's going to be quite an annoyance for them. Why not De Bruyne and Lukaku? Portugal has bad defense. I just think that maybe in these knockout stages, they might tighten things up a bit. And that's the only reason why. And that game's super hard to call. Are you sure about Mbappe and Senior over Immobile and KDB? Mir, this is going to be one of those decisions that is like 50-50, to be honest. So just kind of go with your gut. Jack saying, all I'm seeing is Di Lorenzo's predicted to start. So that's exactly what I kind of thought. I also thought that he was going to be predicted. Like, Immobile is the best Italian option to go for. So I can understand why you guys want to go for him. Like, in terms of him and De Bruyne, that should be perfectly fine. I'm just going for fixtures that I think on paper are easier for the respective teams. And the annoying thing is that if Immobile bangs tonight, people will judge it like that. But they have kind of 2 days before France play. Why not Havertz? So the only thing about Havertz, I think that Germany-England game is going to be super tight. And although Havertz is the best German option, that fixture is going to be quite close. The Lukaku versus Mbappe. So that's what it basically came down to. I upgraded Lukaku to Mbappe today because I had the money to spend. Oslin or, I think it's Olsen or Simon. Go for Simon. I just maybe trust Spain more defensively because of their high possession. Rio says 2 French strikers, a big risk, but you're the GOAT. So I don't think I'm the GOAT, but I do think it's a risk. So I do agree with you, Rio, on that one. Why not Havertz? I think I just answered that question. I just said that I think that Germany-England game is going to be super tight. Mela and Berardi or Di Lorenzo and Damsgaard. Go for the first option, Nikhil. That looks better. Stones or Gozens. I think that the German side of things is better than the England side of things because I predict Germany to win. But John, if you predict England to win, then Stones is a better option to go for because it's going to be 1-0 either way, I think. Yarmolenko worth it. The Ukraine and Sweden players are risks because you're probably going to have to take one of them out of it either way it goes. That Ukraine-Sweden game I can't really predict. Currently going with Sweden, but I think that Ukraine could easily win. So, I mean, if you think that Ukraine will win, then go with Yarmolenko, but I think that I favor the Sweden assets. Jaden, which rank are you hoping to finish at? As high as possible. Do you think Billy Gilmore will start, Davey? So Cameron, as far as I know, I think he's quarantining. So I don't think he will start. But also the fact that Scotland is not playing, but I don't want to make you cry too much. Best 5.4 mil defender. As far as I know, if he starts, Gozens, but also the Denmark defenders. If you're looking for 5.4, then just go cheaper than that, Joshua, and go for a 4.5 of Mela from Denmark. Is Kimmich a good shout? I don't like him because to me he plays as a defender and he's listed as a midfielder. So I know that he is sometimes playing in the center, but as far as I saw him, he's more of a kind of wing back sort of position. So that's why I don't really like him. Davey, how much do you have in the bank? Ahmed, I've got 0 in the bank. It's a perfect thing. Jack saying Wales going to win 2-1. I actually had the discussion today with someone that I said I wouldn't mind it if Wales wins 2-1 because I just think Wales are a really exciting team to watch. Will you be doing Champions League fantasy? Probably not. If there's a demand for anything, if there's enough demand for anything, I'll do it. But I'll just focus on FPL on my other channel and then the Euro content. And then I'll change it to more general footballing content. So maybe like positions and that sort of thing. France is not that clinical. So Dipta, France aren't that clinical and Mbappe is less clinical. So it's kind of the recipe for disaster there. But what I'm kind of hoping for is that because France played stronger teams, they're going to do well against the weaker side, inverted commas, of Switzerland. Did you answer on KDB, says Dwayne? So the only thing about KDB that I don't like is the Portugal fixture is unpredictable. If they win that, they face Italy. And also, I won't captain a Belgium asset, so I won't captain KDB on the second day. Mbappe or Ronaldo? I think the upside is on Mbappe's side, so I would slightly go for him. I have 3.8 in the bank. Is it bad? If you have this team and you have 3.8, I don't know what players you had in your team in the group stages because that's absolutely mental. Sprash saying Damsgaard in KDB or Bale in Sarabia in any of that range, 7 million. I would go with Damsgaard and KDB. The deadline is in 3 minutes, guys, so please get those teams in. Best 4.9 defender, go with 4.5 Mailer from Denmark. Is Spinazzola be captain or Immobile? So to me, it's a 50-50 between those two. because on the first day, I'm not trusting the captaincy too much. I'm going for a player that I think could do well, and Spinazzola has clean sheet and attacking threat. On the second day, I'll be definitely going for Memphis Depay. So that's my captain kind of I'm set for. Who to captain are the Italy options? 50-50 Immobile or Spinazzola, in my opinion. If you want to go safe, just go with Immobile. Damsgaard or Sarabia? I prefer Sarabia. That's why he's in my team, Dexter. Holbier for Sarabia. Henry, I prefer Sarabia. So if you kind of look at my team and you see a player that's cheaper, know that I've compared them anyways. So because I've got Sarabia in my squad, I think he's better than anyone cheaper than him. Lukaku over Mbappe. I would do that if you think that Belgium are going to do well in that game, then 100%. But I just think the upside is on Mbappe's side of things. And I think if France do qualify, they face Spain, which I think they could win as well. So that could be fine. Light Ray is saying, lock your team. That is true. Please, guys, get those squads in. Jason saying, I'm 18 points behind you. I'm going to catch you. Good luck, brother. Thanks a lot, brother. Good luck to you too in the round of 16 group stage. Or not group stages, round of 16. Hopefully you end up doing well. I just kind of want to take a screenshot here of my team so that the deadline doesn't come around too quickly. Okay, so I got a screenshot here. I will post that on my Twitter page. What about Ramsey? I don't like going for Wales options because I don't know if they're going to beat Denmark. That's the only reason why. Dayvy is the most important question of the day. Is football coming home? So Harry, I answered this earlier. It definitely is coming home because the final is at Wembley. That's the only reason why football is coming home. Unfortunately, I'm predicting Germany to beat England. So I'm pretty sure my mentions are going to be absolute toxic waste on Monday or Tuesday whenever England play, when England end up beating Germany. How's the Dayvy 0.4 out? Who should I downgrade? Downgrade Pavard to Kimpembe. How many points do you have so far? I've got 220 points. So I think that's good. I think that's relatively fine. KDB, Keegan, so I answered this on Belgium. I just think that game's quite unpredictable, and I won't captain a Belgium asset anyway, so I would rather just go with a player with a bigger upside. Thanks again for everything, Davey. Much appreciated. No worries, Amir. Thanks for dropping by. And unfortunately, the deadline has come about, guys. So that's going to end it for this deadline stream. Hopefully, you guys did get those teams in, those transfers locked, those captaincies locked. And I'm hoping for some really good fixtures in this round of 16. As Josh was saying, come on, England there. Hopefully, the respective nations of you guys end up winning. As a South African, obviously, we didn't even qualify for the Euros. So that was a little bit disappointing. But hopefully the next 4 years, we can become a united European nation country and then qualify for the Euros whenever it does take place. But this has been the deadline stream for the round of 16 for the Euro Fantasies. Good luck, as I say, and hopefully we all get rank boosts and finish number 1 in the world come that quarterfinals. I'm signing off. It's been Dayvy FPL, and I'm out. Cheers. Bye.